My name is Grace, and the message my son sent me 3 weeks before Christmas broke my heart in a way I was not prepared for. Before I go any further, please take a moment to subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss more emotional and powerful stories like this. Also, tell me in the comments what country you're watching from, so I know where you're listening from. Now, let me tell you what happened. It was a quiet evening. I was sitting alone in my living room, wrapping small Christmas gifts. Nothing expensive. Just little things picked with love. A scarf. A photo frame. A handwritten card. My phone buzzed. I smiled when I saw my son's name. I thought he was calling to ask what time Christmas dinner would be. Instead, it was a text. I opened it, and my smile disappeared. It said, "Don't expect us for Christmas. We're going to my wife's parents. They're more important." I read it again. And again. I whispered out loud, "More important than me?" My hands started shaking. I typed back slowly. "I thought we were spending Christmas together." The reply came fast. Plans changed. That was it. No apology. No explanation. No kindness. Just plans changed. I sat there staring at the Christmas lights blinking on the wall. I remembered every Christmas I had made special for him. The years I stayed up late cooking. The times I wrapped gifts after long workdays. The mornings I pretended everything was fine even when money was tight. And now, I was not important. I tried calling him. No answer. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. That hurt more than the message itself. Because it told me something very clear. He didn't want to talk. Let me pause here. Because what hurt me most was not that he chose his in-laws. It was the way he said it. Like I was an option. Like I was something easy to drop. I went to bed that night without eating. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind outside. I kept asking myself one question. When did I become this invisible to my own child? The next morning, I woke up early. I made tea and sat by the window. The street was already decorated for Christmas. Neighbors putting up lights. Children laughing. Everyone was preparing for family. Except me. Later that day, my phone buzzed again. Another message from my son. "Please don't make this a big deal." That sentence did something to me. It didn't make me cry. It made me quiet. Very quiet. I replied with just one word. "Okay." That surprised him. Because he was expecting something else. He was expecting tears. He was expecting guilt. He was expecting me to beg. But what he didn't know was this. That message pushed me to make a decision. A Christmas decision he would never expect. I looked around my house. The empty chairs. The silent rooms. The gifts I had wrapped for people who would not come. And I said out loud, "If I'm not important, then I will stop acting like I am available." That night, I picked up my phone again. Not to beg. Not to argue. But to do something that would change everything. After I sent that one-word reply, "Okay," I placed my phone face down on the table. I did not cry. That surprised me. I sat there for a long time, listening to the clock tick and the heater hum. The house felt bigger than usual. Every sound echoed, like the walls were reminding me that I was alone. I kept thinking about his words. "They're more important. Not this year. Not just this time. More important." That night, I barely slept. I kept remembering Christmas mornings from years ago. Him running down the hallway in his pajamas. Me pretending to be surprised by the gifts I bought myself and wrapped, from Santa. The smell of food filling the house while music played softly. I had built those memories with my own hands. And now, I was being told they did not matter. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I made breakfast out of habit, then realized there was no one to serve it to. I pushed the plate away and made tea instead. My phone buzzed. A message. From my daughter-in-law. I hope you understand. This is easier for us. Easier. I stared at the word. Easier for who? I typed and erased many replies. I wanted to say. I raised him. I sacrificed everything. I am still here. But I sent nothing. Silence felt stronger. Later that day, I went to the closet and pulled out the Christmas gifts I had already bought. I laid them on the bed. A sweater in his favorite color. A cookbook for her. A toy for their dog. I touched each one slowly. Then I did something I never imagined I would do. I put them back in the box. All of them. I sat on the edge of the bed and whispered, "So this is how it ends." But another voice inside me answered, "No. This is how it changes." In the afternoon, my sister called. "Are you ready for Christmas?" she asked cheerfully. I hesitated. "They're not coming," I said quietly. There was a pause. "What do you mean?" she asked. I repeated his words. She gasped. "Oh, Grace," she said softly. "I'm so sorry." I closed my eyes. "I don't want pity," I said. "I just want peace." That evening, I sat down with a notebook. Not to write a letter. Not to complain. But to think. I wrote down one question at the top of the page. What do I want this Christmas? I stared at it for a long time. Then I started writing. I want to feel respected. I want to stop waiting for calls that don't come. I want to stop shrinking to make others comfortable. When I finished, I felt something lift off my chest. 2 days later, my son finally called. His voice sounded normal. Too normal. "Hey Mom," he said. "You okay?" I almost laughed. "Yes," I replied. There was a pause. "That's it?" he asked. "You're not upset?" I smiled softly. "No," I said. "I'm just adjusting." "Good," he said quickly. "I knew you'd understand." Understand. That word again. "By the way," he added, "we might stop by after Christmas. If we're not too tired." If. I felt the old me want to say yes. The old me wanted to sound grateful for scraps. But I didn't. "I've made other plans," I said calmly. There was silence. "What plans?" he asked. I looked around my quiet house and answered honestly. "Plans that don't involve waiting." He laughed awkwardly. "Okay," he said. "We'll talk later." He hung up. I sat there holding the phone, my heart pounding. I had not raised my voice. I had not argued. I had not begged. And yet, something had shifted. That night, I opened my laptop and searched for something I had never searched for before. Christmas volunteer opportunities. My finger hovered over the mouse. Was I really going to do this? Yes. Yes, I was. I clicked. And that was the moment my Christmas decision truly began. The volunteer center smelled like coffee and old books. I noticed that right away when I walked in, because my hands were shaking and I needed something small to focus on. The room was warm, busy, and full of quiet movement. People were carrying boxes, sorting clothes, laughing softly. No one looked rushed. No one looked lonely. A woman at the desk smiled at me. "Are you here to help?" she asked. I hesitated for half a second. "Yes," I said. "For Christmas." Her smile widened. "We always need extra hands this time of year." She handed me a form and pointed to a table. As I filled it out, I felt strange. Nervous. Almost guilty. Like I was doing something wrong by choosing myself. But when I finished and handed it back, the woman said something that stayed with me. "Thank you for being here," she said. "You don't know how much this means." No one had said that to me in a long time. They put me in the kitchen. Big pots were simmering. The smell of soup filled the air. Someone handed me an apron and showed me how to help. I chopped vegetables slowly, carefully. My hands remembered this kind of work. Cooking for others had always been my way of loving. The difference was, no one here expected it from me. As the hours passed, I started to relax. People talked while they worked. A young man joked about burning bread last year. An older woman told a story about her first Christmas alone. Someone played soft music on a small radio. I felt something warm settle in my chest. Belonging. When I got home that evening, my phone buzzed. A message from my son. Just checking in. You sure you're okay? I stared at the screen. He was checking in now. After days of silence, I typed back slowly. I'm busy. Talk later. I placed the phone down and smiled to myself. Busy. That word felt new. The next day, I went back to the center. They remembered my name. Glad you came back, someone said. That small sentence meant more than they knew. Later that afternoon, my daughter-in-law called. Her voice sounded careful. Hi, she said. We were talking, and we thought maybe you could come by for dessert on Christmas Eve. Dessert. Not dinner. Not the whole evening. Just a small piece. I closed my eyes. The old me would have said yes immediately. The old me would have been grateful for crumbs. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Thank you, I said calmly. But I already have plans. There was a pause. Oh, she said. What kind of plans? I looked around my kitchen, still smelling faintly of soup and spices from the center. Good ones, I replied. That night, I sat on my couch with a blanket and tea. I felt tired. But it was a good tired. The kind you feel after doing something meaningful. On the third day, something unexpected happened. A little girl at the center tugged on my sleeve. Are you coming on Christmas Day too? She asked. I smiled down at her. Yes, I said. I am. She grinned. Good, she said. I like you. My throat tightened. When I got home, my phone buzzed again. Another message from my son. You sound distant. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back. I'm just learning to be present. I didn't know if he would understand. But for once, that didn't matter. That night, I stood in my living room and looked at the Christmas tree. It was small. Simple. But it was mine. I hung one more ornament on it. An old one. From his childhood. I whispered softly. I loved you enough to let you go. The closer Christmas came, the quieter my phone became. At first, I didn't notice it. I was busy. My days were full in a way they hadn't been for a long time. I woke up early, made my bed, ate breakfast without rushing, and headed to the volunteer center with purpose. But one evening, as I set my phone down on the table, I realized something. No messages. No calls. No checking in. And strangely, it didn't hurt the way it used to. At the center, preparations were growing bigger. More boxes arrived. More names were added to lists. More people showed up needing help. I was given more responsibility. They trusted me. Can you help organize the gift bags? A young woman asked. Yes, I replied without hesitation. I spent hours sorting small presents. Socks. Gloves. Candy canes. Simple things that could still make someone smile. As I worked, I thought about the gifts I had packed away at home. The ones meant for my son and his wife. They were still in the box. Untouched. That afternoon, my sister stopped by my house unexpectedly. She looked around, surprised. You seem calm, she said. I smiled. I feel calm, I replied. She hesitated. Are you sure you're okay about Christmas? I nodded. I am, I said. For the first time in a long while. She sat down across from me. I wish he hadn't said it like that, she said softly. About them being more important. I took a deep breath. So do I replied. But I'm glad he did. She frowned. Why? Because it showed me where I really stood, I said. And I needed to see that. That night, my phone rang. My son's name lit up the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. "Mom," he said, sounding uneasy. "You've been quiet." "Yes," I replied. "Are you mad?" he asked. I thought about that. "No," I said honestly. "I'm just not chasing anymore." There was a pause. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means I stopped waiting to be chosen," I replied. He laughed nervously. "You're being dramatic." I smiled to myself. "No," I said. "I'm being honest." He changed the subject quickly. "So, Christmas Day," he said. "We might be able to stop by in the evening. Just for a bit." Just for a bit. I closed my eyes. "I won't be home," I said calmly. "What?" he asked. "I won't be home," I repeated. "I already told you. I have plans." "With who?" he asked sharply. "With people who want me there," I replied. Silence. "Then, you're choosing strangers over your own family?" I felt my chest tighten, but my voice stayed steady. "No," I said. "I'm choosing myself." He sighed loudly. "You're acting like we abandoned you," he said. I paused. "You said they were more important," I replied. "I believed you." "That's not what I meant," he snapped. "But that's what you said," I answered quietly. He didn't respond. The next day at the center, something happened that stayed with me. An older man came in, shivering, wearing a thin jacket. I helped him find a warm coat and handed him a cup of soup. He looked at me and said, "I didn't think anyone would notice me today." My eyes filled with tears. "I see you," I said. And as I said it, I realized something. I was saying it to myself too. That evening, my daughter-in-law sent a message. "We didn't mean to hurt you." I stared at the words. I typed back slowly. "Intent doesn't erase impact." There was no reply. On Christmas Eve morning, my son called again. This time, his voice sounded tense. "Mom, are you really not coming over at all?" he asked. "No," I replied gently. "This is getting ridiculous," he said. "It's just one holiday." I took a deep breath. "It's not about the holiday," I said. "It's about being told I don't matter." He was quiet. Then he said something that surprised me. "I didn't think you'd actually take it this way." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I know," I replied. "That's the problem." That night, I stood by my window and watched snow fall softly outside. I felt peaceful. But I also knew something. My decision was starting to scare him. Because for the first time, he could feel the distance. And he didn't know how to fix it. Christmas morning arrived quietly. No loud knocks. No rushing around the kitchen. No last-minute phone calls asking, "What time should we come?" Just silence. And for the first time, that silence did not feel cruel. It felt honest. I woke up before the sun, the way I always did on Christmas. Old habits die slowly. I lay in bed for a moment, listening to the soft hum of the heater and the distant sound of wind outside. Usually, this was the moment when sadness hit me hardest. But this time, it didn't. I sat up, stretched, and whispered to myself, "Today will be different." I made myself breakfast. Not the big Christmas spread I used to prepare. Just eggs, toast, and tea. Simple. Warm. Enough. As I ate, my phone sat on the table. Silent. I did not check it. At the volunteer center, the doors opened early. There were more people than usual. Families. Elderly folks. People who had nowhere else to go. Someone handed me a Santa hat and laughed. "Christmas uniform," they said. I put it on and smiled. The kitchen was busy. Steam rose from pots. Plates clinked. Children laughed. I was helping serve food when a woman around my age touched my arm. "Are you here alone today?" she asked gently. I nodded. So am I, she said. But somehow, I don't feel lonely. I smiled at her. Neither do I replied. Around noon, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Then again. I stepped into the hallway and looked. 3 missed calls. From my son. My heart skipped. Not from hope. From curiosity. I did not call back right away. I finished serving meals. I helped clean tables. I hugged the little girl who had asked me earlier if I'd be there on Christmas Day. I'm glad you came, she said. So am I replied. And I meant it. When I finally stepped outside, the air was cold and sharp. I pulled my coat tighter and checked my phone again. A message from my son. Are you home? I stared at it. Then another message came. We're done here. Done. Already. I took a slow breath. I replied calmly. No. I told you I had plans. The phone rang immediately. I answered. Where are you? He asked, his voice tense. I'm spending Christmas, I replied. With who? He demanded. With people who didn't rank me, I said quietly. There was silence. You really didn't wait for us, he said. I almost laughed. You didn't wait for me either, I replied. That's not the same, he snapped. It feels the same, I said. In the background, I heard voices. Laughter. Dishes. His wife's family. The ones who were more important. You could have just stayed home, he said. Normal mothers do. That sentence stung. But I did not let it show. Normal mothers, I said slowly, don't get told they matter less. He exhaled sharply. You're making this bigger than it is. I shook my head. No, I replied. I'm finally seeing it for what it is. He lowered his voice. We drove by your house, he said. The lights are off. Yes, I said. Because I'm not there. Another pause. You weren't supposed to actually leave, he muttered. That was the moment everything became clear. I stopped walking. What do you mean? I asked. He hesitated. I thought you'd cool off, he said. I thought you'd still be home. Waiting. Waiting. That word hit me harder than anything else. I stopped waiting, I said quietly. There was nothing he could say to that. I ended the call and stood there, snow crunching under my shoes. My hands were shaking. Not from cold. From the realization that my absence had finally spoken louder than my words ever did. When I got home later that evening, the house was dark and peaceful. I turned on the lights. I sat down. I wrapped myself in a blanket. My phone buzzed again. A message. This doesn't feel right. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back. Neither did what you said. I set the phone down and looked at the Christmas tree. The lights twinkled softly. I felt tired, but I also felt strong. The morning after Christmas felt strange. Not sad. Not heavy. Just quiet. I woke up later than usual and lay in bed for a few minutes, listening to the house breathe. The ticking clock. The soft creak of the floor when the heater came on. Everything felt steady. For years, the day after Christmas had always been about leftovers, visits, and small complaints. This time it was about reflection. I made coffee and sat at the table, holding the warm cup in both hands. My phone was beside me. Face down. I did not rush to check it. That alone told me how much had changed. When I finally turned the phone over, there were messages. 5 missed calls. All from my son. 1 message from my daughter-in-law. We need to talk. I stared at those words. Not can we talk. Not are you okay. We need to talk. Like a meeting. Like damage control. I did not reply right away. Instead, I got dressed and went for a walk. The streets were quiet. Wrapping paper sat by trash cans. Christmas lights blinked lazily in windows. People were recovering from the holiday. So was I. As I walked, I thought about something the volunteer center manager had said to me the day before. You know, she said, people don't always realize what they're losing until it's not available anymore. At the time, I had smiled politely. Now, I understood exactly what she meant. When I got home, my phone rang again. This time, I answered. Mom, my son said quickly. Where were you yesterday? I took a breath. I told you, I replied. I had plans. You really went through with it, he said, disbelief in his voice. Yes, I said simply. There was a pause. Then his tone changed. Softer. Careful. I didn't think you'd actually leave the house, he admitted. I closed my eyes. That's what hurts, I said quietly. What? He asked. That you thought I would stay, I replied. That you thought I would wait. No matter what you said. He sighed. You're my mom, he said. That's what moms do. I felt a slow ache in my chest. Moms are people too, I said. And people get tired. He was quiet. Then he said something that surprised me. It felt weird, he admitted. Not knowing where you were. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. That's how I felt, I replied. When you told me I wasn't important. He didn't argue this time. Instead he asked, so, what now? That question told me everything. He wasn't asking how I felt. He was asking how to fix the discomfort he was feeling. I don't know yet, I said honestly. But things can't go back to how they were. He frowned. What does that mean? It means, I replied slowly, I won't accept being an afterthought. Later that day, my daughter-in-law called. Her voice sounded polite, distant. We didn't mean for things to get awkward, she said. I smiled sadly. They didn't get awkward, I replied. They got honest. She paused. Well, we just assumed you'd understand, she said. I nodded. I always did, I replied. That's why it became easy to overlook me. That evening, my son showed up at my door. Unannounced. I opened it slowly. He stood there holding a small bag. Leftover dessert. I brought you something, he said. I looked at the bag. Then at him. Thank you, I said. But you didn't have to. I wanted to, he replied. I stepped aside and let him in. He looked around the house. Everything was the same. But his eyes moved differently now. Like he was seeing it for the first time. You really weren't here yesterday, he said quietly. No, I replied. I wasn't. He nodded. I didn't like that feeling, he admitted. I sat down across from him. Sit with that, I said gently. Don't rush to escape it. He frowned. You're different, he said. I smiled softly. No, I replied. I'm clearer. He stayed for less than an hour. When he left, he hugged me. The hug felt unsure. Careful. Like he was afraid I might pull away. After he left, I sat alone again. But this time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt grounded. 2 days after my son came by with the leftover dessert, my phone rang early in the morning. Too early. I knew that tone. It wasn't a check-in. It wasn't concern. It was urgency. I answered. Mom, he said quickly, we need to talk today. I stayed quiet. Like, really talk, he added. Can you come over? There it was. The pull. Why? I asked calmly. There was a pause. Well, he said, things feel off. Ever since Christmas. I almost smiled. Off for who? I asked. For everyone, he replied. It's awkward now. I nodded slowly. So you want me to fix the awkwardness, I said. That's not what I meant, he said quickly. I just think we should clear the air. Clear the air. Another phrase that usually meant one thing. Let's move on without changing anything. I'm not coming over today, I said gently. What? He asked. I said I'm not coming over, I repeated. There was silence. Then his voice hardened slightly. You're still holding on to this? I took a breath. I'm holding on to myself, I replied. He sighed loudly. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. I felt a familiar pressure in my chest. The old pressure. The one that told me to back down. But I didn't. It became big the moment you told me I wasn't important, I said. He didn't answer. Later that afternoon, my daughter-in-law sent a message. We're coming by later. We should talk face to face. No question mark. No asking. Just a statement. I stared at the screen. Then I typed back. Today doesn't work for me. The reply came fast. This is getting unnecessary. I read that twice. Unnecessary. Like my feelings. That evening, there was a knock at my door. I knew who it was before I even stood up. I opened the door slowly. They were both there. Standing side by side. My son looked tense. His wife looked annoyed. We were in the area, my son said quickly. I smiled politely. I told you today didn't work, I replied. He shifted his weight. We just want to talk, he said. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. We can talk here, I said calmly. His wife crossed her arms. This is ridiculous, she said. We didn't mean anything by what he said. I looked at her. But he said it, I replied. And I heard it. She rolled her eyes slightly. You're taking it too personally, she said. I felt something settle inside me. A calm certainty. I'm allowed to take words personally when they're about me, I said. My son stepped in. Mom, you know how she is, he said quickly. She didn't mean it like that. I looked at him. You're explaining her, I said. But no one explained me. He opened his mouth. Closed it. We just want things to go back to normal, he said. I nodded. I understand, I replied. But normal doesn't work for me anymore. His wife scoffed. So what, we're supposed to rank you now? She asked. I met her eyes. No, I said. You're supposed to respect me. There was a long silence. The cold air wrapped around us. Finally, my son spoke. So what do you want? He asked. I thought carefully. I want to be spoken to with care, I said. I want to be invited, not assumed. And I want to stop feeling like an option. He looked uncomfortable. That's a lot, he muttered. I smiled softly. It's the bare minimum, I replied. His wife shook her head. You're changing, she said. Yes, I agreed. I am. They left shortly after that. No hugs. No apologies. Just tension. That night, I sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket. I didn't feel guilty. I felt sad, but proud. Because I had done something I had never done before. I had said no. And I had meant it. But the story didn't end there. Because the next morning, my son tried something else. Something subtle. Something familiar. And that was when I realized he wasn't just uncomfortable. He was afraid of losing the version of me that always made things easy for him. The next morning, my phone buzzed before I even got out of bed. Not a call. A message. From my son. I'm sorry if you took it the wrong way. I stared at the screen. That sentence sat heavy in my chest. If you took it the wrong way. Not I'm sorry for what I said. Not I hurt you. Just a soft apology with a door open to blame me. I did not reply. I made my bed, washed my face, and made breakfast slowly. I wanted to be fully awake before I decided how to respond. When I finally sat down with my tea, another message came. We're family. We shouldn't let this drag on. Drag on. like my pain was an inconvenience. I typed carefully. I'm not dragging anything. I'm setting boundaries. The reply came almost instantly. Boundaries from your own son? I closed my eyes. This was the part one knew well. When calm didn't work, he tried guilt. Later that day, my sister called. I heard they came by last night, she said gently. Yes, I replied. She sighed. I know you love him, she said. But I'm proud of you. That made my throat tighten. Thank you, I whispered. In the afternoon, I went back to the volunteer center. The familiar smells and sounds grounded me. Someone waved when they saw me. Good to see you, they said. Those simple words filled a space my family had left empty. While I was helping stack boxes, my phone buzzed again. Another message. We're coming over tonight to clear the air. No question. No respect. I wiped my hands and typed back. No. Please ask before coming. There was a long pause. Then. This is exactly what I mean. You're pushing us away. I felt my chest tighten. But I stayed calm. I'm not pushing. I'm standing still. That evening, I sat alone in my living room. The house was quiet, but not empty. I looked around and realized something important. For years, I had filled every silence with effort. Calls. Messages. Visits. I was always the one reaching out. Now that I wasn't, the silence felt loud to them. At 8:17 p.m., my phone rang. I answered. Mom, my son said, his voice low. Why are you doing this? Doing what? I asked. Pulling away, he replied. I took a deep breath. I'm not pulling away, I said. I'm stepping back so I can breathe. He sighed. You're acting like we don't care, he said. I paused. You cared enough to choose, I replied. But not enough to choose gently. There was silence. Then he said something that surprised me. I didn't think words mattered this much, he admitted. I nodded. They always mattered, I said. I just stopped ignoring them. He lowered his voice. So what happens now? He asked. I thought carefully. Now, I said, we learn how to talk to each other differently. And if we don't? He asked. I swallowed. Then we learn how to live with the distance, I replied. That night, I slept deeply. Not because everything was fixed, but because I finally understood something. I was not punishing my son. I was protecting myself. The thing my son did next was quiet. No shouting. No angry messages. No sudden visits. That was how I knew it was serious. 3 days passed without a word from him. At first, I thought maybe he was finally thinking. Maybe he was sitting with the discomfort the way I had asked him to. I told myself not to assume the worst. But on the 4th day, my phone rang. It was not my son. It was my sister. Her voice sounded careful. Grace, she said, I wanted to ask you something before you heard it from someone else. My stomach tightened. Ask me what? I said. She hesitated. Did you tell him not to come to Christmas anymore? Like, ever? My heart skipped. What do you mean? I asked. She took a breath. He told the family you don't want to be part of holidays anymore, she said. He said you chose strangers over your own family and asked for space. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. That's not what I said, I whispered. I didn't think so, she replied quickly. That's why I called. After we hung up, I sat very still. So this was his move. If he couldn't pull me back with guilt, he would push me away with a story. That evening, messages started coming in. From cousins. From an aunt. From an old family friend. Are you okay? We heard you don't want to do Christmas anymore. What happened between you and your son? My hands trembled. Not from fear. From the weight of it. He had taken my boundary and turned it into a rumor. I typed and erased replies over and over. I didn't want to defend myself. I didn't want to explain. I didn't want to be pulled into drama. But I also refused to let a lie become the truth. So I sent one message. The same one. To everyone. I didn't walk away from family. I stepped back from disrespect. Then I turned my phone off. The next morning, there was a knock at my door. I already knew who it was. I opened it slowly. My son stood there alone this time. No wife. No backup. His face looked tired. Angry. Cornered. "Why are you telling people things?" he demanded. I crossed my arms. "I told the truth," I replied. "You made me look bad," he snapped. I laughed softly. "No," I said. "You told them a story." I corrected it. He stepped inside without asking. "You embarrassed us," he said. "My wife is furious." I met his eyes. "You embarrassed me first," I replied. "When you said I wasn't important." He waved his hand. "That again," he said. "You're still stuck on that?" I felt something settle in my chest. A final clarity. "Yes," I said. "Because it told me everything." He paced the room. "So what do you want?" he asked sharply. "An apology?" "Fine. I'm sorry." The words were fast. Flat. I shook my head. "That's not an apology," I said. He stopped pacing. "Then what is?" he snapped. I took a breath. "An apology doesn't rush," I said. "It doesn't blame. And it doesn't come only when you're uncomfortable." He clenched his jaw. "You're being impossible," he said. "No," I replied. "I'm being clear." He looked around the room. At the couch. The photos. The quiet. "You know," he said slowly, "if you keep this up, people will stop inviting you." I nodded. "Then they'll be inviting the real me," I replied. "Not the version that stays quiet to be included." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. "You've changed," he said. I smiled sadly. "Yes," I replied. "I had to." He moved toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back. "So what now?" he asked. I looked at him for a long moment. "Now," I said, "you decide whether you want a relationship or control." His eyes darkened. "You're really willing to lose me over this?" he asked. I felt the ache. But I did not back down. "I lost myself trying not to," I replied. He left without another word. The door closed softly behind him. I leaned against it and exhaled. My hands were shaking. But my voice had not. That night, I sat alone in my living room. I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The years of giving. The habit of silence. The fear of being alone. And I realized something important. I was not afraid anymore. My phone buzzed once before I went to bed. I turned it on just long enough to read the message. From my son. "If you don't fix this with the family, don't expect US at all anymore." I stared at the screen. Not with panic. With understanding. I read his message 3 times. "If you don't fix this with the family, don't expect US at all anymore." I did not cry. I did not panic. I sat down slowly and placed the phone on the table. Because for the first time, I heard the truth clearly. This was not about Christmas. This was not about misunderstandings. This was about control. For years, I had been fixing things. Smoothing words. Swallowing hurt. Pretending not to notice when I was pushed aside. And every time I fixed it, I taught him something. That I would always bend. That I would always stay. That I would always be there. No matter how I was treated. That message was not a threat. It was a test. I stood up and walked to the window. The street was quiet. Winter lights glowed softly. Somewhere, families were laughing, eating leftovers, moving on. So was I. I picked up my phone and typed slowly. Not in anger. Not in fear. But with clarity. I'm not fixing anything. I'm telling the truth. When you're ready to have a relationship without disrespect, you know where I am. I read it once. Then I sent it. My heart pounded for a moment. Not because I was unsure, but because I knew this was different. This time, I was not chasing him. I was choosing myself. Minutes passed. No reply. An hour passed. Still nothing. And something inside me relaxed. The next day, I went back to the volunteer center. They greeted me like family. Good to see you, someone said. I smiled. It's good to be seen, I replied. That afternoon, my sister called again. I heard what he said, she told me. And I heard what you said back. I held my breath. I'm proud of you, she said. Tears filled my eyes. Not because of pain. Because of relief. Days turned into weeks. Christmas decorations came down. Life settled. And my phone stayed quiet. No dramatic apologies. No sudden visits. No attempts to pull me back. And I understood why. Because boundaries don't scare people who love you. They scare people who benefit from you having none. One evening, weeks later, my phone buzzed. A message. From my son. It was short. I miss you. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back. I miss you too. When you're ready to talk with respect, I'm here. This time, I did not add anything else. No explanations. No apologies. No begging. I put the phone down and smiled softly. Whatever happened next. I knew one thing for sure. I would never go back to being small to keep someone else comfortable. And now, before I end this story, I want to speak directly to you. If someone makes you feel like love must be earned, if they tell you others are more important, if they expect you to stay silent so they can stay comfortable, please hear this. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. If this story touched you, subscribe for more emotional, powerful stories like this. Like this video so more people can hear it. And turn on notifications, because the next story might help someone who feels unseen right now. Also, tell me in the comments what country you're watching from. Because sometimes, the bravest Christmas gift you can give yourself is dignity.